Did you know that there are fundraising secrets for your seed round that VCs are not telling you because it gives them the competitive advantage? Well, my name is Michael Hummel, and today we are going to be diving into what those secrets are and exactly how you, the startup founder, are going to be able to set up to have the highest chances of success and be able to close out your seed round in the smallest amount of time possible so that you can get back to being a full-time founder, not a full-time fundraiser. Like I said, my name is Michael Hummel. I've worked with around 140 startups over the last 12 months to raise over $50 million. And I've been able to get private equity back to myself for my own company. So today we're going to be diving into the strategies that we've been implementing into those startups and that you can literally walk away from this video and be able to implement those yourself. Now, the reason this is such a hot topic is, there are so many founders out there that dream of raising capital. In fact, it's not even a dream. You have to raise capital if you want to take your product to market at a venture scale. But why do so many people fall short? Less than 1% of people ever raise from angels or VCs. I think for angels, it's about 0.9%. And then for VCs, it's less than 0.05%. That is insanely low. So today we're going to be giving you all the tools that you need in order to actually have a fair chance at going out there and raising capital. And the reason that I make these videos is I believe that if capital is in the hands of entrepreneurs, of startup founders that are trying to make the world a better place, the future is a lot more exciting place. So if this is something that helps you, make sure you like, subscribe to this channel because more videos are going to be made that are going to show you how to have a more successful fundraiser. All right, so first things first, as we dive into this, we should first define what the market is to make sure you're even looking for the right round of capital, because sometimes people are like, I need to open up my seed round, but they haven't done a pre-seed or a friends and family. So I just want to first define what it is that this market is. That way you guys can know what the rounds are in this current world that we're in, even though it's ever changing. So we're going to dive into the iPad here and we're going to kind of go back and forth on what it is that we're doing, because seed capital is interesting because it's actually part of something called the Valley of Death. I know it's not the most welcoming title, but it's one of the most high-risk times for any startup to try and successfully raise money, because it's going to determine whether or not they get that critical Series A capital in the next round. So let me just dive into this. So the very first round that you should have done before this is a friends and family. And this is essentially you just building something to show. So this is typically when you're going to talk to your rich uncle, your best friend from college, and you convince them to give you 10, 50, even up to $100,000 in some scenarios. And if you've been able to do that up to this point, congratulations. A lot of people don't get past that point. That means you're persuasive. That means you have an idea that people believe in, and that's phenomenal. Now, the next stage about friends and family is going to actually be called pre-seed. And this is typically when you do not get money from direct family members or close friends. It's typically going to be going out to angels, high net worth individuals, or whoever else. In the description below, I actually have a link about pre-seed funding that you can come and watch a video that walks through the best strategies for that, because pre-seed, seed, Series A, there are slightly different strategies that are very crucial that you know what you're doing and what is more important to investors at that specific stage. So if that's you and you have only raised friends and family, you might be better suited for pre-seed, so go and watch that video there. Now, after pre-seed, what you're going to be going into is, of course, what we're talking about. There is seed stage capital. Now, this is actually part of what's called Valley of Death. And I'll pop up a graphic right here so that you can see what this curve looks like. Up to this point is where a lot of companies fizzle out and fail. This is pretty much where the highest failure rate is for startup companies, because you have to get people to believe in what you're doing at such an early stage with such a little track record, which makes for pretty big problems. You jump into something called your Series A. And this is honestly what I think is the dream round for a lot of companies to get to. It's validation. It's typically when you have product market fit, or you're just starting to get product market fit. You're raising a lot more money. Typically a Series A is going to be like 5 million plus. I'd say a seed round's anywhere from 1 million to 5 million, and then pre-seed 1 million under. And after Series A, there's all other types of rounds. There's Series B, C, D, and so forth, all the way down to like as long as you want to go. However, what everyone is trying to get to is that magic moment where you have a liquidation event. So you IPO or you get acquired even. That would be another opportunity for you. So a bigger company is going to see you. They're going to be like, wow, what you're building is exciting. I just want to buy you. That is also the goal. So goal number one is IPO. Goal number two could be getting acquired at that early of a stage. So to get to those points though, you absolutely have to get past the seed stage, right? So if you can't get past here, if you can't get this seed money to survive and to validate what you're doing and validate the product market fit and that it is a venture scale opportunity, then you're never going to successfully build your business, which is unfortunate. And that's why we exist, like I said. So that's why I'm making this video, because today I'm going to be telling you exactly what it is that you need to do in order to successfully raise that seed capital. Now that we've identified if you are actually going to be in the seed stage, I want to talk to you about the 3 things that you pretty much have as a checklist prior to you going out to raise capital, because these are the 3 common mistakes that I see founders make before they go out and raise capital or after they try and go out and raise seed capital, and it's going to pretty much doom you for failure. And if you're missing any of these 3 elements, it's extremely likely that you're going to fail. So if you don't want to fail, listen to these 3 steps. So the 3 things that you first need to consider are, first, is this the right time for you to start your raise? Now that might sound obvious. Like, Michael, obviously, like, I want to raise money. I need to raise money. So this is the right time to start. Hang on, hang with me. So the 3 things that you should try and assess are, first, is there an MVP? So if you do not have an MVP, depending on your industry, this is going to make raising your seed round of capital much more difficult. And you're probably more likely going to have success going out for the pre-seed stage type investors. Once you get to seed, you start looking for more institutional guys and girls, and you're going to run into more problems if you do not have an MVP. Investors love to see it, use it, feel what it is that you've built, and that's a degree of traction that you need to make sure that you have. So if your product's solid, then you go on to the next thing. And the next thing you're going to want to have is the right team in place. So there's a crazy stat, which I might flash up here on the screen, but it's some absurd amount, like 80+% of successful companies out there, might even be unicorns, always have a co-founder. Okay. So if you're the only person in the company and you're outsourcing everything else, you don't have a co-founder, you don't have, these accolades, the right college, the right previous experience at a different company. If you didn't work at Uber and you weren't one of the first early stage guys at that company or a similar startup like that, then you're going to run into a lot of problems, because investors are going to look for previous experience in your own life because they don't have the track record of the startup to rely on. So your startup success is not possible to gauge because you've only probably been around for a year, maybe 2, if you're moving kind of slow. They don't have this track record of they're successful. They only can look at your previous work experience. So you want to stack your team with people who have similar experience, people who have unique perspectives to basically make it so that you are going to be the one that's going to win. First thing is your MVP. Second thing is going to be your team, and it's not in any specific order. And the third thing is going to be traction. This one's probably less important at the seed stage. However, I like to throw it in. So traction is the buzzword of the century right now. Every single investor is saying traction, traction, traction. It's what is most important. It's what they need to see. What does it actually mean? So the way that I like to think about it is do you have anyone that is validating product market fit at this early of a stage? Now, you're not going to ever get product market fit at a seed stage. Very rarely, that is. However, you want to show that people have demand. People want to buy your stuff in the most simple terms. Investors want to know that there is a market for what it is that you're creating. You'd be blown away with how many companies out there don't think about selling their products. They don't think about who's actually going to buy this. And that's how the investor makes their money, obviously. So you need to think about who is actually going to use this. What is our monetization plan? And the more clear that you can get on that before you go and start conversations with investors, the better you're going to be. So those are the first 3 things. And step number 1, is this the right time? You need to make sure that you have that down. Step number 2 is, are you desperate? So this one is kind of weird, but extremely important. So the amount of people that start fundraising too late is extremely high. And this is probably one of the biggest mistakes, because as a founder, right, you're so focused on building this product. You're so focused on making it what your vision is, which is amazing. However, sometimes you don't think about the money that's in the account and the runway that you actually have, right? So there is this little flip that happens once you start to see that bank account go down a little too low. Everyone has a different number. And you're oh, I need to raise some money. And the issue with this is, if you let it get to the point of desperation and you're not 100% confident in your ability to raise capital, you come off as desperate. Have you ever gone to, a car lot and, there's someone that's like, you need to buy this today. It's the only car that you can find in this color at this price. You don't like buying from people like that. And it's the same exact thing in fundraising. If you come across as desperate and it makes it seem like there's no one else that's interested in your deal, there's no other investor that you have, and you're just trying to get every investor you talk to, or else you go out of business and you go under and you lose your house, you lose your family. Why would any investor want to be a part of that? People bet on winners, okay? Whether you like it or not, you need to start way earlier than you think. Start fundraising. And by that, you don't actually have to raise money earlier. That's not saying you need to raise money when you don't have to, but you should start essentially flirting with investors and starting to tell them what it is you're working on when you don't need it. Because then when you do actually go to raise some money, they already saw the progress that you made. They saw this growth curve, right? They talk to you all the way over here, right? That's where they're going to be like talking to you, right? Like, let's say on that X, you guys are having that initial conversation and they see your business, we'll put green, like start to go like this, momentum wise. They want to get involved right about there, right? And then what they think's going to happen after that is that you're going to go up. They think capital is gasoline on the fire. It's not the spark. So this is a very important, crucial thing to understand. If you're going out there trying to raise money and you want the capital to be the spark of your business growth, you think that the capital is going to fix all your problems. It's not. You have to get to a point to where you validate that model enough to where capital is gasoline on that initial spark, and it's going to make it scale. That's what investors are looking for. So if you're doing that, you're going to do great. The last thing that you need to consider is when you actually have time to actually do this. So time invested. Now, this may be a surprise for you, but in 2023, the average round took around 10 months to close. 10 months, okay? Not only do you have less than a 1% chance of raising capital, but if you do, it takes about 10 months and literally hundreds of hours of your time. So you should be focused on building the product, going to market, traction, recruiting, and a million other things, and potentially having a life in there, not just full-time fundraising, right? So if you're spending 100% of your time fundraising for 10 months, well, how are you growing your business then? What's going on in that regard? You're probably not. And that's a big issue that a lot of people run into. It's you don't think about the amount of time that you're going to commit. There's so many founders out here that are living in 2017 or 2018 when money was flying and you could close around in 30 days. Almost no startups get that. Look at the actual data that's out there. You can just Google it for yourself. Rounds are getting longer and startups are just having a harder and harder time actually getting that capital. And maybe things are going to change, but as of right now, that's the market condition that we need to play at, or else you're going to have a really hard time. So make sure you take all three of those things. So again, to recap, number one, is this the right time for you to start trying to raise, right? Do you have the product, the traction, the team? If you don't have those three things in place, if you don't feel like confident in those three things, you're going to just get shut down by investors. So make sure you check those boxes before you try and start conversations. Number two, are you desperate? Is the bank getting a little too low? Do you have almost no runway? Fix your cash position so that you are not desperate for money. Start earlier with those conversations so you don't get in this position of desperation and you're not going out there begging for money, because nobody likes that. Number three, do you have the time to commit to doing this? Because if you're going to spend a majority of your week fundraising, make sure that everything else is in order so that you don't slow down the progression of the business. Because the last thing you want is for you to dedicate all of your time for 6 months, 10 months to fundraising and make absolutely no progress with your traction, like getting it to market, the product stays the same, because that shows you're stagnant. That shows you're stagnant, and that's going to turn investors off as well. Now, let me show you what's working in 2024 to attract capital. Now, a big part of what I want every startup founder to do out there is to never get in a position to where you have to go out and beg for money, or to be in a position to where you can't raise money, so you go out of business when you're actually building a life-changing technology that could be really excited if you brought it to market. It's what I call becoming an investable startup, all right? So if we talk about what is an investable startup, which sounds straightforward, but again, a lot of people don't create an opportunity that is investable, which is why they don't end up raising money. So let's just define what that is. An investable startup has three things. Number one, it is a narrative. Now, again, all of these three things combined are going to make it so that your raise is absolutely a breeze. It's going to be something simple for you to accomplish. So the first thing is a narrative. Narrative is what? What comes to mind for you? There's two different types. First, you have to have an incredible pitch and a story. So when you're an early stage company, again, you don't have a track record. So what you have to have is a compelling vision that people want to get involved in. And the more clearly that you can articulate that vision without stuttering, without lacking confidence in any way, you're going to have a higher chance of actually raising money. So not a lot of people focus on that pitch and the story portion. The second part of narrative is you need other people to validate it. So I call that third parties. Now, the way that we recommend people do this is reaching out to different news outlets, journalists, getting subject matter experts on LinkedIn to actually write about your company. We've seen 1,000 of those on LinkedIn about AI. They're just featuring all the coolest little AI tools that are popping up, right? So when you do this, what it does is it differentiates your startup from the norm, right? And the more that you can differentiate your startup from what the norm is for other companies, the higher the likelihood is that an investor looks at you and is like, huh, I should look deeper into this. I should look at this more closely and see if it's something that could be big, right? Because those are the whispers. Those are the whispers that they hear, and then they want to get involved early. That's what the seed game is about. They want to get in early. That's how they get the 100,000x returns. They hear the whispers at a small stage, and then they hop in. That is number one. You need to have a narrative. Number two, what you're going to need is traction. So I know I use this as part of the secret, but that's how important this is. Now, when it comes to traction, what you need to do is think about what is the minimum amount of traction that I need to get in order to differentiate from every other startup in my industry that they think is traction. So what is the norm in terms of progress at a seed stage for your industry? And then how do you go one notch above it? Don't go anything crazier than that. I'm not saying you need to go out there and make millions of dollars at the seed stage, but what you do have to do is show that you're slightly different and that you're better. Now, I do this in a few different ways. So let's say you don't have a product still. You can start developing a wait list, right? So have people that are like, why, yes, I do want to buy your stuff. Let me know when it's done. You can have, obviously, paying customers. So if you can figure out a way to acquire customers and have people that are already paying you, no investor is going to be like, oh, I don't want to invest in this. One of the deals that I invested in purely because of the traction. They had so many people buying their things. I was like, take my money. And they did. And it's been working out quite well for me. So customers, you can have JVs or even like partnerships, right? So associating yourself with other existing companies that have large customer bases that you can kind of absorb. So what you need to do is do traction way earlier than any of the competitors that are in your same industry trying to raise those rounds. Because what? Again, you have the narrative, you have that story, but also you have market validation and you're doing things rather than just talking about it. This is all investors want. And then let's talk about pillar number 3. And this is going to be the more obvious one, but the shocking amount of people that don't do this, it's hilarious. It is investor meetings. Investor meetings. So investor meetings, you need more than you ever thought. Okay. So as of right now, the average, like a really good person at presenting with a great startup is going to get 5% of the investors that they pitch to actually invest. Okay. So what you need to do is you got to section it out. I learned this from, Fred Campbell actually at Track VC. You need to section it out into 3 different tiers. There are A tier, B tier, and C tier. A tier are the dream investors, right? They're the people that if they got on with you, the big name investors, they'll introduce you to all your customers. They'll introduce you to partners that'll open up doors that you never thought possible. Those are your dream. And that's going to typically be like 5 to maybe 20. All right. At most. And I'm talking 5 to 20 total investors on planet Earth for that. And then there are the B stage investors. And these are still good fits. But nothing really life-changing. They're just going to get you money. And let's say that there's probably, several hundred to, if not 1,000 of these out there, depending on your industry. So there are people that could write a check, help your business stay alive, but it's not going to be something that completely changes the game for you. And then there are the money investors, the people that you might not necessarily want to take money from. However, they have it and you need it. So you're going to talk to them anyways so that you sound good. And there's probably 1,000 to, let's say 3,000 investors out there that meet that criteria. Now, why do I say this? It's because far too many startups go after the dream investors first. And it's heartbreaking because you're not going to sound good on your first few pitches. So just to recap, the 3 pillars that you need in order to become an investable startup: traction. So wait lists, customers, JVs, so forth. 2, narrative. You need to have either the perfect story that's articulated by you, or better yet, you get other people saying that story for yourself. That way it hits even harder. People are curious, man, why is this startup getting talked about? Why is this one different than the others? And then 3, you need more investor meetings than you ever thought possible. If you do those 3 things, you're going to be a highly investable startup and you're going to greatly increase your chances of raising seed capital in 2024. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure you like, subscribe. If you want more exclusive content and actually to talk to me personally, go to thestartupshortcut.com. We don't believe in shortcuts, but it's the closest thing to it. We're going to show you everything that you need, in-depth trainings to generate more traction, get people talking about you, as well as how you can set up more investor meetings. I'll see you in there, and I'll see you in the next video.